Every documented collapse follows the same opening move. Leningrad, 1941. Sarajevo, 1992. New Orleans, 2005. The first homes to fall were not breached by force. They were opened from the inside. Neighbors, relatives, friends, familiar faces asking for shelter, food, warmth, safety. The doors opened. The countdown started. This is not opinion. This is pattern analysis. When systems fail, trust becomes the most expensive currency in existence, and most people spend it blindly in the first 48 hours. That mistake kills more survivors than violence ever will. The world you were trained for no longer exists. Social contracts have expired. Law is gone. Enforcement is gone. And morality is no longer protected by abundance. Your home is no longer a place of comfort. It is a closed survival system with finite energy, finite calories, finite tolerance for error. Every additional human inside that system increases consumption, noise, exposure, psychological friction, and decision latency. This is mathematics, not cruelty. The most dangerous belief you can carry into collapse is the old world reflex of hospitality. The idea that letting people in is inherently good. That kindness will be repaid. That shared hardship builds unity. History does not support this belief. Collapse environments reward restraint, selection, and control. They punish sentimentality instantly and without appeal. You are not judging character. You are calculating risk. You are not saving people. You are preserving a system. Survival is not about being right morally. It is about being alive operationally. Once you understand this, the question changes forever. It is no longer who deserves help. It is who cannot be allowed inside. And that list is longer than you think. The first survivor you must never let into your home is the dependent optimist. This person will not arrive broken or desperate. They will arrive calm, verbal, and confident in the idea that we'll figure it out together. They speak in collective language while bringing nothing measurable into the system. They believe survival is a shared emotional process rather than a logistical one. This belief is lethal. The dependent optimist is a product of infrastructure. They were raised inside uninterrupted supply chains, emergency services, and institutional rescue. Their confidence is not based on skill, preparation, or adaptability. It is based on historical bailouts. When pressure rises, they do not act. They wait. Waiting consumes time. Time consumes margin. Margin is the only thing keeping you alive. Inside your home, this person becomes an invisible drain. They ask questions instead of executing tasks. They require reassurance before action. They turn uncertainty into discussion and discussion into delay. Calories are burned explaining reality to them. Attention is diverted managing their expectations. Decision authority erodes as they push for consensus where speed is required. None of this looks dangerous at first. That is why it works. Watch their language. Someone should. There must be a way. I'm sure it'll calm down. These phrases signal dependency, not hope. Hope without capability is not neutral. It actively increases risk by encouraging underreaction. In collapse environments, underreaction is fatal. The most damaging moment comes when resources tighten. The dependent optimist does not adapt by contributing more. They adapt by redefining fairness. They will argue that rationing is unnecessary, that sharing equally will keep morale high, that things will stabilize soon. This is how systems starve from the inside. They are not malicious. They are worse. They are convinced they are right. Operational principle. Optimism is not a trait. It is a liability unless it is backed by competence, output, and discipline. Anyone who cannot function without reassurance, structure, or rescue is not a survivor. They are a consumer wearing a calm expression. Your home cannot support consumers. It must exclude them. The second survivor you must never let inside is the silent observer. They are not loud. They do not complain. They do not demand. They watch. In stable societies, this personality type is dismissed as shy or analytical. In collapse environments, it is a reconnaissance asset waiting to be activated. Silence is not neutrality. It is information gathering without exposure. The silent observer asks very little but notices everything. Your storage habits, your routines, who sleeps where, who controls access when defenses are active and when they are relaxed. They memorize without writing. They map without drawing. Every casual movement you make becomes data. Every answered question becomes structure. Once they leave, or once conditions shift, that data is no longer neutral. It becomes targeting information. The most dangerous trait of the silent observer is patience. They do not rush to exploit you. They let trust decay naturally. They wait for hunger, fear, or external pressure to fracture the group. Then they reposition. Sometimes they leave quietly. Sometimes they bring others back. Sometimes they turn internal dynamics against leadership. You will never see the betrayal coming because it does not feel like hostility. It feels like absence. Many survivors misjudge this type because they confuse compliance with loyalty. The silent observer follows rules flawlessly while evaluating their weaknesses. They accept assignments without resistance while learning your limits. They do not challenge authority because they are studying it. This makes them appear safe. They are not. They are unresolved risks stored inside your perimeter. Your home is not just shelter. It is a command environment. Information leakage inside a collapse is equivalent to leaving doors unlocked at night. You would never do that deliberately. Letting in someone who contributes no decisive value but absorbs total situational awareness is the same mistake, executed slowly. Operational principle. Anyone who consumes information without producing trust, labor, or allegiance is a future threat. Observation without commitment is not harmless. It is preparation. Your survival system cannot tolerate internal reconnaissance. Exclusion is the only countermeasure. The third survivor you must never let into your home is the moral enforcer. This individual does not threaten you physically. They undermine you psychologically. They arrive carrying ethics from the old world and deploy them as weapons inside a reality where those ethics no longer function. Their primary tool is guilt. Their secondary tool is hesitation. Both are fatal. The moral enforcer speaks in absolutes disguised as compassion. What is fair? What is right? What kind of people we are? They frame survival decisions as moral trials instead of operational calculations. Every hard choice becomes a debate. Every boundary becomes cruelty. Every protocol becomes something that needs to be justified emotionally. This erodes command authority faster than any external threat. In collapse environments, leadership must be decisive and cold. The moral enforcer cannot tolerate this. They push for discussion when action is required. They demand consensus when time is scarce. They invoke children, humanity, and the future to override present reality. This is not kindness. It is denial seeking control. Once embedded, they change group dynamics. People begin to self-censor. Leaders second-guess. Necessary exclusion feels shameful instead of necessary. Resources are redistributed to maintain emotional harmony instead of survival margin. The system begins optimizing for feelings instead of outcomes. That system does not last. The most dangerous phase comes when scarcity intensifies. The moral enforcer will accuse leadership of becoming monsters. They will frame discipline as tyranny. They will rally the weak and uncertain by offering moral superiority in exchange for compliance. At this point, internal fracture is inevitable. You are no longer defending against collapse. You are managing a moral insurgency inside your own shelter. Operational principle. Morality without enforcement infrastructure is fantasy. In collapse, ethics must serve survival, not replace it. Anyone who forces you to justify necessary decisions is not preserving humanity. They are accelerating failure. Your home must remain a command space, not a courtroom. Exclude those who cannot accept that reality. The fourth survivor you must never let into your home is the skilled but unaligned. This is the one most people miscalculate. They have real value, medical training, mechanical ability, combat experience, agricultural knowledge, something tangible, something rare. That is exactly why they are dangerous. Skill creates leverage. In stable systems, leverage is regulated by contracts, law, and replacement. In collapse, none of that exists. The skilled but unaligned individual knows their value, and more importantly, they know you know it too. From the moment they enter your home, the balance of power begins to shift. Quietly, rationally, inevitably. They contribute but selectively. They solve problems, but not permanently. They position themselves as indispensable. Once dependency forms, authority weakens. You stop issuing commands and start negotiating. You tolerate attitude, boundary testing, and subtle non-compliance because losing them feels more dangerous than accommodating them. That is how control transfers without violence. Loyalty is not declared. It is demonstrated over time through sacrifice, alignment, and submission to structure. The skilled but unaligned survivor offers none of these. They offer output without allegiance. They will help today because it benefits them. Tomorrow, when a better opportunity appears, their alignment will shift instantly. Collapse rewards mobility, not gratitude. The critical mistake leaders make is believing skill equals commitment. It does not. Skill is a tool. Tools change hands. If this person decides your home no longer serves their advantage, they leave with more than they arrived with. Knowledge of your systems, your weaknesses, your internal hierarchy. In some cases, they do not leave alone. Operational principle. Capability without control is a threat multiplier. You can train skills. You cannot rapidly manufacture loyalty under pressure. Anyone allowed inside your perimeter must be subordinate to structure first, useful second. If they resist hierarchy, resist protocol, or treat contribution as bargaining power, they are not an asset. They are a future fracture point. Exclude them before dependency forms. The fifth survivor you must never let into your home is the trauma carrier. This person does not arrive empty-handed. They bring fear, loss, panic memory, and unresolved shock embedded in their nervous system. In the old world, trauma was managed by distance, therapy, and time. In collapse, trauma becomes a contagious destabilizer inside confined space. The trauma carrier is unpredictable under stress. They may function normally during calm periods, even appear useful. But when pressure spikes, noise at night, sudden scarcity, conflict, they regress instantly. Fight, flight, freeze responses override discipline. Screaming, impulsive movement, emotional outbursts, or total shutdown occur without warning. One episode at the wrong moment can expose your location, trigger internal chaos, or cause irreversible mistakes. This is not about empathy. It is about risk propagation. Emotional instability spreads faster than hunger. When one person panics, others begin compensating. Attention shifts from external threats to internal management. Sleep quality degrades. Decision confidence erodes. The group becomes reactive instead of deliberate. Collapse punishes reactivity. Many leaders make the mistake of believing strength will return with safety. That trauma will heal once the person feels secure. This is incorrect. Trauma intensifies in enclosed environments because there is no psychological distance. The shelter becomes a pressure cooker. The trauma carrier's unresolved past competes with present survival tasks and usually wins. The most dangerous phase occurs during conflict or loss. If a resource is stolen, if someone is injured, if plans fail, the trauma carrier personalizes the event. They assign blame. They spiral. In extreme cases, they sabotage protocols out of fear or act irrationally in the name of never letting that happen again. Intent does not matter. Outcome does. Operational principle, stability is not optional. Emotional regulation is as critical as calories and ammunition. You cannot afford to become a caretaker during collapse. Anyone who cannot reliably control their reactions under stress introduces systemic instability. Compassion does not neutralize this risk. Exclusion does. The sixth survivor you must never let into your home is the future betrayer. This is not the obvious enemy. This is the patient one. They do not arrive hostile. They arrive compliant. They follow rules, contribute just enough, and never challenge authority directly. Their danger is not immediate. It is scheduled. The future betrayer operates on timing, not impulse. They understand that betrayal too early fails, so they wait. They let routines normalize. They let trust decay naturally as scarcity increases. They allow you to reveal systems, fallback plans, resource caches, and internal weaknesses over time. Every day they remain inside your perimeter. Their probability of successful betrayal increases. This individual does not think in terms of loyalty. They think in terms of opportunity windows. If conditions worsen, they position themselves to extract maximum value at minimum risk. Sometimes that means leaving with supplies. Sometimes it means opening access to outsiders. Sometimes it means internal realignment, turning members against leadership at the precise moment cohesion is weakest. The most dangerous trait of the future betrayer is plausibility. When they act, it never looks like treason. It looks like necessity. There was no choice. It was the only way. We would have all died otherwise. These justifications fracture accountability and paralyze response. By the time intent is clear, damage is irreversible. Many survivors assume betrayal comes from desperation or cruelty. This is incorrect. It comes from calculation. Collapse removes penalties for opportunism. Without law, contracts, or reputation systems, long-term loyalty becomes irrational unless it is enforced structurally. The future betrayer understands this earlier than most. Operational principle. Trust without enforceable consequence is temporary. Anyone whose survival strategy relies on optional allegiance will eventually choose themselves over the group. This is not a moral failure. It is rational behavior in a failed system. Your defense is not vigilance. It is exclusion. Do not allow delayed threats inside your walls. By now, the pattern should be unmistakable. Collapse does not destroy you through invasion. It dissolves you through admission. Every archetype you have just examined shares one defining trait. They convert your shelter from a controlled system into an open variable. Once that happens, survival becomes negotiation. Negotiation becomes delay, and delay becomes death. The final error most survivors make is believing that danger announces itself. It does not. It integrates. It adapts. It waits. Homes that fall after collapse do not fall loudly. They decay quietly through compromised boundaries, diluted authority, emotional leakage, and misplaced trust. By the time violence appears, the system has already failed. Your home is not a refuge. It is a fortress with a life support budget. Every person inside must justify their existence through stability, output, and alignment. Anything else is romantic thinking carried over from a world that no longer exists. The moment you hesitate to exclude because it feels uncomfortable, you have already lost control of the system. This is the final operational doctrine. Admission is irreversible. Once someone is inside, removal costs exponentially more than refusal ever would. Emotional discomfort at the door is temporary. Structural compromise inside is permanent. Survival demands that you absorb the discomfort early to avoid catastrophe later. You are not responsible for saving others. You are responsible for maintaining a system that keeps you alive. The world after collapse does not reward kindness. It rewards discipline, clarity, and exclusion executed without apology. Those who survive are not the most moral. They are the most selective. Remember this when the knock comes. The knock is never just a request. It is a test of whether you understand the new world or are still obeying the rules of the old one.